Excellent is the Whale Island, the name of the island itself. There's no boats or anything. You've got it full of guns, all kind of guns in the island, all round the island.
Yeah.
Right up to 6-inch gun. And we're doing everything from Vickers machine guns upwards to a 6-inch gun, all training. Although we did this, and they kept us on as it was a spare cruise, they were called, for gunnery, and it went on so that any boat that was required a gunner, even a merchant boat, which I went on, in matter of fact, later on in the story, we did these training for all these guns for that purpose. So whatever boat you was on, whatever they gun was on, you'd got to be able to do it. The first boat we got, we went out into Portsmouth Harbour. I was on a launch, they shoved me on a launch. I didn't know where I was going or anything. And it was a merchant boat, number 18, that's all I know. We went out into the North Atlantic, one of the North Atlantic convoys, which at that time it wasn't the big convoys, it was just one or two little boats.
Right.
And perhaps even a little corvette. That was all they'd got, you see.
Yeah.
Well, this particular one, because they hadn't got a gunner on this merchant one, I went on that one, and this was halfway to St John's. That was halfway to St John's on there. When I got halfway on, there was a proper bloke was sent over, and I was transferred onto a boat coming back to go back to the island again. Second convoy to Russia. Now that was a very small one. Germany hadn't got Norway at that particular time, so it just went through no trouble at all apart from the weather. The weather is something that's you've got to go in the Atlantic to Russia to get that feeling. You get to the time where everything froze up on the boats, and also a spray used to come and hit you if you're on watch. It used to hit your face, and it was ice when it hit you, and it actually cut your face. But until you went down in the decks, it didn't start bleeding.
As
soon as it started there, the blood used to stream down you. And, oh, you know, you get like, oh, look at my face. And yet you couldn't feel anything when it happened. You didn't know anything at all.
But some sort of protection they could have given you.
Well, we all had these heavy balaclavas and everything afterwards, and even the oilskins and K-pock linings, used to call it. That came later on in the war, you see, but this, when we went, there was all you got one was, what do they call those, duffel coats?
Oh, I know.
We went under this submarine, it was used in the 1914 war. It was a horrible thing, it was. But there's something about that submarine, you know, I thought, I wouldn't mind having a go with this in the submarines. Although this boat was antique kind of thing, but I mean it was still new to me because I didn't realise what the submarines were like or anything. So I more or less volunteered for submarines straight away. I did that. They took me in, we did the course for it, I passed the course.
Still a gunner?
Oh yes, yeah, still a gunner for the submarines. Now we went out 2 or 3 places. To start off, it was first ones. Where are we now? First ones, I think we're going round to top of Scotland and back down the east coast in the subs to keep an eye to stop them from any of the German big ships from going along, you know, on the way that in the North Atlantic, like.
So this World War One sub was actually an active service?
It was in active service,
Oh, I thought
yes.
it was a training thing, no?
Well, in fact, what the most of them were that the H44 was the training one. The one we won was at H34, and this one was doing on active service. In fact, it was lost at sea afterwards.
Really?
Not when I was on it, because I'd left it long ago. The next one then was I went on to one of the bigger boats.
Bigger subs?
Yeah. Now what year were we on now? 41, I think we're now. We went round into the North African coast. We're going round to there on a submarine now.
On a more modern one now?
Yes, it was actually it was still one of the little ones, but to me it was a big one.
Yeah.
It was the U class,
Yeah.
unbending. We were taking some civilians to land in North Africa at a place called Bone. I found out later on. I didn't know then, naturally, because you never did know where you were. We were taking chaps. All they were going to do was test the soil and that on the beaches for making landings for different things, you see. So there's quite an interesting bit about that, because at that time you had the rubber dinghies, but you didn't have the ones that you cracked open and they blew up. You had to blow them up with one of these pumps like this. So we was just outside of Bowen Harbour. It's occupied by Germans, don't forget then, and Italians. We gets this dinghy out to get these blokes into, pumping away on the old thing. It's dead quiet, because it's squeak, 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 you know. The officer who was in charge, he stood there like this. He stood like this, and there was us, you know, and who was getting grease and God knows what to stop the rattles. But it worked off all right, but we thought it was bloody comical, you know, with this officer with hands on his ears.
When you travelled, just as a matter of interest, when you were going out to North Africa on this sub, if there was no one about, presumably you'd be on the surface all the time.
You had to come up every day, you know, because it took us several days to get round to there. You had to come up. You were up mostly at night. You came up and you got to more or less charge your batteries, you see. It took about 7 hours to charge the batteries, right? So you're on the surface then.
But normally you're going along underneath?
In the daytime you was mostly underneath, but of course there were patches when they knew that there was nothing about. Naturally you'd have perhaps 2 days without going down below.
Because I would have thought, I mean this is only my logic, but I would have thought you use more fuel underneath because you've got more resistance.
Now you see the underneath you're making your own. It's electric. See, you got naturally you're not using your diesel engines because you couldn't use them down below. You're making your own electric from the batteries
Right, so...
Now you charge your batteries when you're on the surface.
I never knew that.
Yeah.
And then when you're below, you're running off the battery power.
Yeah, and you're very slow. You're only doing something like 4 or 5 knots. So in 1942 I was picked up this destroyer, which was most of that business in there. And I was on that.
What, the Lauderdale was a destroyer?
Yeah.
Right.
Hunt class destroyer thing. Now that started doing the regular trips halfway across the Atlantic, as I was saying early on, going over, escorting one convoy halfway across. And then we came back mostly when we picked up another convoy which would be coming the opposite way. Yeah. And their escort went back there, took the other convoy back with them, you see. I don't know why this happened really, because when you think of it, when you go in there and get halfway across, if you've got enough fuel to get back, why are we doing it, you know?
Well, perhaps it was the Americans who were escorting the other side, were they? Or?
I suppose it was most of it. Yeah, most of it. Yeah, perhaps it was that. During this time, it was I've been on it a few months, and there was one of the bombs landed on the foredeck of the Lauderdale. Now it didn't do a lot of damage to anything structural wise, but the blast blew most of the gun screw completely off the boat. Me being a gun layer and the trainer and the captain of the gun, we were all under cover. All right. The blast blew them off. We never saw them again.
Oh, God.
And there's a photo in there of the crew, which is most of them that are gone, you know. From then onwards, we got patched up. As I say, it wasn't a lot of structural damage. We just had one of the gun barrels was out of line a bit, and that was patched up. We was out then, not long after that, and I was on the gun. We was following the direct, you know, on the top of the guns of the mast.
Yeah.
There's director, they're finding the range and something. As they're moving around, it moves this receiver in the gun turret. And we were just following this pointer, and all of a sudden the bloody thing blew up, and it blew into my face.
Oh, God.
That blinded me for a bit. Well, that's got nothing to do with my eyes like this. No. They took as much of this, I don't know whether it's glass of perspex to them days, I couldn't tell you. They took as much as they could out of my eye, but they couldn't do it properly, so I was shipped into Malta Hospital, and they shipped me back, and they called me back into submarines. There I picked up HMS Tallyho, a submarine Tallyho. We did a few trips. We did one trip out into the Med. It was, where the devil was it? Adam Island or something. Adamant Island, off Greece and that.
Oh, right, yeah.
We got round to there. We came back again, back to port to Gibraltar, and in Gibraltar we came back to England to have a refit.
Was this a more modern sub?
This was, one of the big T-boats. This was one of the best boats we got then.
I remember you telling me a few years ago about the worst time you ever experienced was when you were down doing some tests and you were in the submarine and you were down...
Oh, in Malta, yeah. When you came in, they had to do these Davis escape. So many of them were sent up at a time.
Right.
Not all the crew, naturally, because they got to bring the boat back up. So what they did, instead of all that training, like I went through with Australia, they did it in the harbour. Now this is a period when things were really quiet then. It's not when the war was going full blast in Malta, it was all quiet there. But we sent so many up and we got stuck in the mud, you know. We couldn't move, we couldn't move.
You were in the submarine, you sent so many up,
yep.
And then you were stuck on the bottom.
We actually lay on the bottom when they sent these chaps up. This is for training, as it was then, you know, for the Davis escape. They did away with all that business then at Gosport with the big one. But this is later on in the war kind of thing, you know. And of course, all we were doing then was sending these few up. But I think there was about only 4 at a time was sent up, and that was it. One lot of 4.
Yeah.
The rest of your crew then, and away you go. Well, I went to the fact that it's ever so sandy in that.
Yeah.
In there, we're just sunk in and gone further and further in. When it started up, nothing was happening. All it was a hell of a vibrating on the screws, you know, from the propellers. It was several hours before.
How deep were you?
Well, not far, it wouldn't have been. I bet if you put the periscope up, it had almost touched the top.
So you could have got out then?
Well, yeah, we could have got out, but of course this skipper was trying to save the boat. We didn't know what was happening, particularly at that time, whether we was going to get out or not, you know. Of course, we was shit scared.
I would imagine so. I mean, you think you're trapped down there.
Well, they held on to tell us hard, because all these business, what you see on the film, where they tell everybody that what's happening, you never had anything like that in the British.
No.
You knew nothing. You didn't even know where you were going and anything, you know. But when things like that happened, all that skipper was interested in was getting that boat safely back up in case he got rattled out.
How long were you trapped down there?
Oh, we were down there about 9 hours altogether.
I remember you saying the air was getting a bit...
It was getting thick, you know, and actually it's a time when those U-boats, they were, if you had 9 hours down, it was really, you know, you were beginning to doze off kind of thing.
Did you think that was it?
Well, I don't think we'd give up that way, but we kept thinking, well, how don't they send us up, you know? Why don't they send a lot of us up and let him do it on his own and stuff like that? Why don't they send some more up and they wanted the one that went up?
You'd have thought that being in harbour and being so close to the surface, they could have probably brought something over and lifted it out.
Well, I suppose they could, but I don't suppose they'd be able to tell anybody at that particular time. It's like when the Thetis and all them boats, when they got sunk, you mean, they were in the harbour, weren't they? They couldn't get them.
Did you have any radio contact with the shore?
No, not when you're underneath, you got none at all.